Okay.
All right, and then admitting participants. All right, and we may begin.
Okay, thank you very much, Aido. So, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the fourth installment of the Archaeology webinar series of the Department of Sociology and Anthropology and Traces Asia. Today's lecture is presented by Dr. Liane Giemsch of the Archaeological Museum Frankfurt and is entitled Love, Death, and Artists, New Research Results from the Ice Age Hunters from Bonn-Oberkassel. The webinar is jointly hosted by Aido Balboa, Mylene Lising, Dr. Riczar Fuentes, and me. This webinar series is supported by the School of Social Sciences, the Anthropological and Sociological initiatives of the Ateneo, Asia, and the Arete and its Eduardo Aboitiz Sandbox zone. Thank you all for joining us today for another exciting lecture. It is a privilege and a great pleasure to have Dr. Liane Giemsch in our webinar today. Liane and I share the same alma mater. Both of us began our studies in prehistory at the University of Tübingen. And that's why I'm particularly happy that she agreed to present in our webinar series today. Dr. Liane Giemsch is the custodian of the Department of Prehistoric Archaeology of the Archaeological Museum Frankfurt in Germany, and the scientific director of its restoration laboratories since 2015. She curated numerous exhibitions, the most recent one on being human and the beginning of our culture in Africa. Before that, she was a researcher at the State Museum in Bonn as head of the research project on the reinvestigation of the late Paleolithic double burial of Bonn-Oberkassel, which is, of course, the theme of her talk today. And in a joint project of the universities of Dar es Salaam, Frankfurt, and Tübingen, she headed the archaeological research in the interdisciplinary research project Makuyuni in Tanzania. The analysis of the lithic artifacts from Makuyuni was a central part of her PhD dissertation. Liane is one of the very few practitioners in archaeology who bridge the different sectors of museology, excavation, and laboratory research. She's an experienced field archaeologist who headed and participated in archaeological excavations and research in Europe, Africa, and Asia. And she's no stranger to the Philippines, where she has joined the National Museum's explorations in Kalinga and the Cagayan Valley. I hand over the microphone to Mylene now, who met our distinguished speaker at several occasions. Mylene?
Thank you, Alfred. Good afternoon, everyone. Hi, Liane. I've had the good fortune of actually seeing Liane's fantastic work in Frankfurt in 2018 when she curated the Georgian Archaeological Heritage exhibition at the Archaeological Museum in Frankfurt. So I am in awe of her work, especially since, as Alfred mentioned, that she has been able to bridge the different aspects of archaeology from fieldwork to museums. So this afternoon is a very special afternoon with Dr. Liane Giemsch. And before that, I turn you over to Riczar Fuentes. Dr. Riczar Fuentes.
Thank you, Mylene. For the abstract, so the double burial of a young woman and an elderly man from Bonn-Oberkassel in Germany, discovered during quarry work in 1914, is one of the most important archaeological finds of the late Ice Age in Central Europe. It dates between 14,086 plus 239 Cal BP and 14,604 plus 336 Cal BP, and thus belongs to the early back point groups of the late Paleolithic. The recovered grave goods include the skeletal remains of an early domestic dog, two unique art objects, which are among the very few surviving expressions of art from this period, as well as a brown bear baculum, which has special symbolic meaning in this burial context. Since 2008, the burial has undergone new and comprehensive analysis. Approximately 30 international researchers have applied state-of-the-art methods in studying these key finds for Paleolithic research. This resulting new data and the intensive discussion on the age of the finds, the unique grave goods, and about the human beings from this time in general, which altogether yielded important insights into the final period of the last ice age of Central Europe. For today's talk, Love, Death, Artists, New Research Results from the Ice Age Hunters from Bonn-Oberkassel, we welcome Dr. Liane Giemsch. Dr. Gimsch.
Thank you for the nice introduction. In my presentation, I will focus, after a short introduction, about the burial, its context, and the multidisciplinary project in which frame we analyze the burial on the enclosed art objects and the beer baculum, their use and interpretation. The double burial from Bonn-Oberkassel is one of the most important archaeological finds from the last ice age in Central Europe. Bonn, the former capital city of Germany, lays in Western Germany. You can see it on the red dot. Oberkassel is the southern district of Bonn and is located in direct near to the Rhine River, which you can see here. In 1914, workers in a basalt quarry, which lays here, east of the Rhine, discovered numerous bones, some of which were reddish in color. They also recognized this is the removed layer of earth, but no more detailed investigation were possible when the first scientists, you can see here, arrived at the scene. So the white cross is the site, also here on the with a white arrow. Therefore, it can be assumed it is very likely that a young woman and an older man were buried here together with some grave goods and strewed with hematite. This red-colored mineral was often strewn in prehistoric burial, possibly as a color of life with a specific ritualized meaning. Based on several radiocarbon measurements, which were taken from Tom Hyham from the University of Oxford, these graves belong to the late Meyendorff warm phase between 14,086 and 40,064 Colby P, and close to the early Backpoint group. Therefore, at the time when the growth of interstitial forest areas had reached its maximum, which you can see on the red maximum, and along with horse, sorry, the animation does not work. Is this correct? So you see all the animals at the moment? No. Post-ice age fauna was being dominated with red deer, roe deer, elk, and our ox. It is due to the circumstances of the find that we hardly know anything about the grave itself. Starting in 2008, the burial has been submitted to a new and comprehensive analysis. Approximately 30 international researchers under the direction of the LVR Landesmuseum Bonn and the University in Bonn have applied modern methods in studying this key find to Paleolithic research, with intense discussion ensuing on the age of the finds, on the grave goods, as well as after the human beings from this time period in general, generating altogether important knowledge over the last ice age of Central Europe. The two human skeletons belong to the oldest finds of anatomically modern humans in Germany. The skeletons are in a very good condition and belongs to a 25-year-old female and a 35 to 45-year-old man. Apart from information on sex and age, information has been attained on the living conditions, injuries, and illnesses of both humans, which examined Eric Brinkhaus from the University of Washington. Among others, clear changes in the bone structure of the pelvic region of the female have shown that she had survived at least one pregnancy and birth. The analysis of the skeleton of the male revealed some peculiarities. He lost during his lifetime many teeth, you can see here in the upper jaw, and suffered from a purulent infection on the lower jaw, which you can see here. The latest studies of the skull of the male have produced amazing results. In the front area of the left parietal bone is a perceptible impression which indicates a well-healed injury. It could well be possible that the injuries of the right upper extremity, the healed fracture of the right ulna, and the right collarbone and the skull are related. In addition, there has a whole series of another anthropological investigation, the presentation of which, however, would go beyond the scope of this lecture. Besides the osteological studies, biochemical and molecular genetic analyses have also revealed exciting results. Analysis of the stable isotope in the human skeleton remains have provided answers to questions associated with diet and with determining the region where the man and the woman have grown up. Determining the regions of carbon and nitrogen isotopes in the bone material reveals that the humans live mainly from a diet of meat. In contrast to the Neanderthals, there are also indications that these two humans ate freshwater fish and mussels. It is also clear that collecting plant nourishment was becoming more important for modern human beings. Strontium and oxygen analysis of the human teeth, which present traces of elements stored in teeth since childhood, were compared with those from later years found in the bones. Since different landscapes are associated with diet and the traces of diet left in the body, we can determine where the human beings spent their childhood. Strontium isotope ratios in the Oberkassel humans correlate to the Rhineland as their living area. Thought no limited only to the Rhineland, the oxygen isotope state reveals a clear difference between the woman and the man, indicating different areas where they, as children, attained their food. The results of genetic studies also interest. It was possible to construct a complete mitochondrial genome as well as the nuclear genome and to show that the Oberkassel humans were not related as siblings of father and daughter. It was also determined they are most similar genetically to the subsequent Mesolithic people and the Sami living today in northern Scandinavia. The Oberkassel individuals are the eponym of the final Paleolithic people, the so-called Oberkassel cluster. From this, we may conclude that the genes of the last hunters and gatherers have been preserved longer in peoples of Northern Europe as compared to the DNA from people of Central Europe, which have been influenced by other regions with agricultural farmers and animal breeders. A fascinating object of the Oberkassel research project was to provide the Oberkassel humans with a face. Since the facial skull of both Oberkassel humans are unusually well preserved, a facial reconstruction was possibly based on produce known in forensic medicine. In contrast,
hello, Dr.
Yes?
Gimsch. I'm very sorry to interrupt, but I think your slides aren't moving. We are still in the climbing 40,000 years ago slide.
Okay, you can see nothing.
stopped moving. Maybe we can exit the share screen and try to share the screen again.
Okay.
Okay. Then you can try to share this screen again, please.
Do you see something?
Yes. We now see results for facial reconstructions.
Okay, so is it full screen? No.
Not yet. Not yet.
Can you see now the next slide?
Yes.
But it's not full screen.
No.
Is it now full screen? Not.
Not yet.
Sorry, I cannot make it full. So it's the same problem than we had before. Now it's gone. Okay.
Okay, I'll share my screen. Let's try it from my end. And then I'll give you the remote control. And so now you're controlling my screen.
Ado, the notes are visible. You can change the settings. Thank you.
Can I touch here or? Ah, no.
Yes, but okay. Can you see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay. Then I'll give you the remote control again. And then I'll full screen from my end. And can you see the PowerPoint in full screen?
Yes.
Okay. And then now try to control it.
How can I make the next slide? I don't know.
Try using your arrow keys.
Okay, does not work.
Or pressing your mouse. There. Okay. Okay.
So, in contrast to artistic reconstruction, the facial reconstruction represents their portrait with a more scientific accuracy, the true appearance of both Oberkassel's humans. Here are the results of scientific facial reconstruction of both humans. Apart from the two skeletons, bones from a dog were also recovered. It was buried with the humans and it presents one of the oldest dogs ever. The osteological and pathological studies of the Oberkassel dog confirmed the animal had reached the age of 7 to 8 months, despite suffering from osteoarthritis in the right elbow. This kind of joint pathology is here for the first time being described for a pre-Neolithic dog. It is a possibility that the dog recovered from injuries through the care of the human beings, pointing to a close relationship between the animal and the human, explaining then the reason for it being buried with them. Genetic studies of the Oberkassel dog and further prehistoric and modern dogs and wolves prove well the mtDNA analysis of the Oberkassel dog could confirm that the animal skeleton is in fact a direct ancestor of the present-day dogs. The 14,000-year-old dog skeleton from Oberkassel is then one on a worldwide scale, one of the oldest examples of a four-legged hunting companion for human beings. The dog has been for thousands of years a companion for Ice Age humans long before animals such as sheep, goats, cows, or pigs were being kept. The grave also contained other grave goods. Here we first focus on the edited art objects, which count among a few known examples of the artistic expression from this time period. The first one of the unclosed art objects is a flat sculpture with a maximal height of 36 millimeters. Also, more than a fourth of the small figurine was lost during its recovery. We may contend that it clearly represents an animal depiction. Unfortunately, one of the more important parts of the body, such as the head, which should be here, and the posterior extremities are preserved. A very nicely worked strong neck is followed by a raised vitus, which clearly emerged into the rounded back. One on the front section of the neck is a ear pointing backwards. The front leg is clearly set off from the neck by a well-developed massive chest area. On the rear part of the body, the sculpture has a very short tail pointed on two sides. The animal's body is extensively covered with dense, sloping parallel lines on both sides, which are probably intended to represent the fur. On the flat side, the one with the ear, fine vertical lines also were applied in the neck windle section, and in the preserved front chest area, there are deep, short, slanting lines, probably the indication of longer hair. All available attributes speak for the depiction of an animal from the deer family. The execution of the body details, such as a short, strong neck, the raised vitus, and the mane, may indicate an elk, as we can see on the right side. Recent studies of the piece also point to elk antlers as source material for the piece. Also, the sculpture is not completely preserved. It is easy to see that the front leg was carried out in a strongly backward angled position. It is a presentation of a reclining animal. Bridged front and rear legs with a hole are characteristic of the late glacial amber figurines from Naspe, also Weiche, and possibly also Woldenberg. It is very likely that the elk figure from Oberkassel has braided front and hind legs in a similar way, as you can see in the reconstruction also on the right. The flat stripe from Oberkassel was probably used as an amulet, a pendant, or an applique sewn onto hunting clothing, which may have served as a lucky charm when hunting, or as trimmings for Siberian shaman robes, as well as we still know from historical Siberian peoples. The clear traces long-term use of the various elk-shaped amber artifacts like Weiche or Naspe show that these were intensively used as amulets, and that the tradition of using decorated pendants exists no longer in the Alaric period. The similarity with the finds from Eggemark and White also suggests the depiction of a Kalkau. The second remarkable object from the Oberkassel burial is a 20 centimeter long bone pin with an end revealing a sculpture animal head. The object was carved from a long bone with remains of the spongiosa still found on the end with the animal head. The stuff is a rectangular cross-section with rounded edges and extends down to an oval and flat end point. The splendid sides exhibit across almost the entire length angularly carved pairs of lines which are arranged with spaces between the pairs. On the back, the angled tips point in the direction of the slimmer end, while on the other side, tips are oriented in the direction of the head. The sculpture head reveals an elongated snout with a short and receding lower mandible, as well as the small round ears. The area of the neck is narrow and covered with angled hedged marks, which might represent an animal's man. Two different stone tools were used for this purpose, one to produce the fine lines and the other lead to deep broad lines. The head has been interpreted as the head of a rodent or a weasel, of a bird, a horse, or a red deer, roe deer, or other cervid. But a bear's head also comes in consideration, especially in profile. The bear also has a triangular shape and the snout area is carpeted. A closer look reveals a carved snout at the pointed end of the animal's head. In addition, a bear is characterized by small round ears, which are also characteristic on the bone stick. However, it should be noted that the surface of the root has a closely finish, especially in the head and ear area, due to long-term use. This use may have contributed to the rounding of ears, which may have once been larger. A close relationship between humans and bears can already be assumed based on the evidence found in numerous sites from the Middle and the Upper Paleolithic. Shape is reminiscent of the cap head riddle from the Graviton by Kostianki 1 and Adevo, number 4 and 5 on the slide, which, however, are significantly smaller with a maximal length of 11.6 centimeter and no artistic treatment of the head and exhibit. Since the equipment of the last glacial burials is generally more similar to the Mesolithic than to the Upper Paleolithic, in comparison with younger material could possibly provide some information. Interesting here is a comparison with Mesolithic early Middle Age elk head sticks known from northern Eurasia. A knife with an animal head end from grave number 61 from Olny Ostrov is very similar to the Oberkassel bone stuff on the slide number 3. 1 and 2 are further elk head sticks from Olny Ostrov. The scientist Trumnow compares the bone stuff from Oberkassel with that of a shaman stuff among the Siberian Nanai, and suggests that Oberkassel is the grave of a shaman with an assistant. Elsewhere, graves with elk head sticks are associated with shamans. However, the overall quite frequent occurrence of the elk head stuffs rather speaks against this interpretation. Rather, elk head sticks may be coupled with many major male who has gained some degree of respect, like, for example, in Olny Ostrov, which you can see here on the slide. If we accept the statement of the quarry workers from Oberkassel to be true, that in fact the bone pin of the Oberkassel burial was found near the head of one of the skeletons, we could see real parallels to the Mesolithic burials and draw the conclusion that with the Oberkassel burial we have the first proof of a tradition that was practiced over thousands of years in northern Eurasia, in which animal head pins were placed in the graves of the dead. A closer look at the angular decoration of the Oberkassel stuff may also be helpful to describe the function and the classification of the object. Various art objects, such as the sandstone retoucher from Niederbiber, with its schematic depictions of women, indicate that there is a certain degree of continuity of the Magdalenian art elements into the late Areté period, and presumably angular decoration also have their roots in the art of the Magdalenian of Central and Western Europe. Generally, in the glacial period, zigzag motifs and the chevron decoration become very popular and are present bone and harpoons as well on stone artifacts. In general, the angular decoration probably can be thought of as intentional cuts, such as functional technical ones, for example, to loosen the grip region. Chevron bands without center line are a common motif in late Paleolithic art. For historical Siberian peoples, such motifs are associated with ideas about the rebirth of shamans. At the Gönnersdorf Magdalenian site, which is 2,000 years older, chevron bands are found as well. Here, such representations occur in different variants and can be identified as shamanic representations of women. It remains to be seen whether the angle stacks of the Oberkassel stuff are also related to this. Generally, in the late Paleolithic of Western and Central Europe, Magdalenian art is replaced by Assyrian mobile objects with geometric decoration. During this period, men went from hunting herds in the past to hunting game like elk. These artistic represents expressions. These reflect the changed world of thought of humans in response to the environmental change at the end of the Ice Age. Now we come to the last grave good, which I would like to examine in more detail today. Here was also found a beer baculum in the Bonn-Oberkassel grave context. Our colleague Martin Street was able to identify series of cuts along the coved edge of the beer baculum. These are were overlined by hematite and must have been created before their deposition in the grave. It suggests a purposeful deposit in the grave as a grave good. But for what reason bear baculum was given as an addition in the grave? Was it a sexual symbol or a tool? Undisputed is the special relationship between bears and humans. Our science have always been fascinating to humans, to their ability to walk upright on their hind limbs and to mimic human gestures. Numerous ethnographic sources document a very deep relationship between bears in more recent times, which had a strong impact on the paleontological and archaeological research history on cave bears between the end of the 19th and the beginning of the 20th century. Even a rich archaeological record documents human-bear interactions. Their relationship often remains difficult to interpret. Examples. Sorry, can I backwards? No. Examples are deposits of cave bear skulls, as well as depiction of bears as a cave paintings or as mobile art in form of figurines made of ivory. But which evidence we have for the use of baculum in ethnographical and archaeological context? The ethnographic record provides a frame of references and may give an idea in the metaphysics of indigenous people. This record certainly should not be taken as one-to-one comparison with can be directly transferred to the Paleolithic or any other archaeological record. Several ethnographic sources refer to the use of brown or polar bear bacula amongst indigenous populations across the circumpolar sphere. In general, it's documented for several Siberian peoples that bare bacula were worn by women directly on their bodies in order to ward off or cure infertility and easy birthing. The woman should at all times kept the old penis safe at her side and pass it on to her descendants in the female line. These points are strictly adhered to by the Udege people even nowadays. A highly interesting ritual vessel of the Udege comes from the Khabarovsk region in northern Russia. The vessel was used to store ritual spoons used to serve boiled bear's meat during the bear feast, and a total of 15 ursa and penis bones are attached on the upper part of it. The records of the Kunstkamera archive further state that when a bear cadaver was divided, the hunter who killed the he-bear received the penis. This he would pass on to his wife or another close female relative. This organ symbolizes the relationship between man and bear and was seen as a powerful amulet that could heal infertility or easy childbirth. The Tuva and the Ket people from now southern Siberia also see penis bones of bears as a symbol of power and strength. And several authors relate to the Sami of northern Scandinavia, who understood penis bones of bears to be particularly powerful and strong, kept them, attached them to sacred drums. In native cultures of Alaska, the bacula of polar bears were often polished and used as hilts of knives or other tools. Inuit, on the other hand, associate the bone with male initiation rites for adulthood. Shamans use polar bear penis bones in traditional Inuit ceremonies. Here, the penis bone is believed to aid communication with the spirit world. The context in which bacula were used in the indigenous societies are distinguished very clearly by their bringing power and strength to the owner, independently of their use as a tool, such as handles or for shamanistic ceremonies. Noteworthy is the ubiquitous significance in protecting women against infertility. As with tools, this might be related to the assumed property of giving the owner the power and strength to easy potency. Moreover, male or he-bears are not only seen as forebear, but also groomed, replacing the human husbands. So now we come to the archaeological evidence. It is light. We try to evaluate rare archaeological evidence of ursa and penis bone use. Contrary to usual archaeological practice, we will provide some examples of bacula use for the youngest to the oldest evidence. The most important source for prehistoric use of bear bacula was found in the spectacular Stone Age burial site of Shamanka II at Lake Baikal in Siberia. Whereas the archaeological remains speak of a late Mesolithic hunter-gatherer context, the site is dated between 8,000 and 7,000 Col BP. 35 of the 154 Stone Age burials contained bones of brown bears. Samples consists mostly bear teeth, skull bones, as well as bacula. In contrast to the skull fragments, the bacula were found directly on the human skeletons or in concentration directly adjacent to the buried individual. Overall, there are 16 fragmented or intact bacula spread across 8 human burials, 6 of which contained human adult males. One baculum had been smoothed intensively at its distal end in order to create a sharp grooving tool such as an awl. Because of the maturity of the bacula of Shamanka II is associated with human male adults, it can be understood as a symbol of the direct transmission bestowed by the male reproductive organ on the generative potency and virility virility of the man. An ursine penis bone was found in the late Magdalenian cave site Teufelsküche in Germany and two somewhat older than Bonn-Oberkassel. The bone bears longitudinal traces of scarping along the shaft, most likely from skinning. The distal end of the baculum is broken, most likely during its use, probably as an awl. Originating from Gravettian contexts are two other bacula found in cave sites of the Swabian Jura in Germany. One comes from the Gravettian layer of Brillenhöhle in the Aach Valley near Blaubeuren. The penis bone of the cave bear shows 6 notches and dates roughly between 29 and 25,000. The tip of the baculum displays on an old fraction. Its use as an awl was considered. The distal end shows longitudinal thinning facet toward the tip, implying a resharpening of the pointed end. The use as an awl is evidenced by a broken off flake of the tip, displaying the cancellous tissue in the inner part of the baculum. Furthermore, fine circular striae at the tip support the interpretation as an awl. The cave site Hohlefels, also situated in the Aach Valley in Germany, yielded several complete and fragmented penis bones of Usus, Speleus, and brown bear. One cave bear baculum from the Gravettian layer is intensively polished on all sides. The polished surface is covered with fine stretches pointing in all directions. In addition, there are longitudinal cut marks probably caused by defleshing. We suggest a marked polish to be used where originating from leather working, similar to the polish seen on smoothers. Another baculum from a cave bear comes from the cave site Vindija in northern Croatia. The cave bear penis bone is exceptionally decorated with multiple circumferential scorings, a pattern that we only know from Upper Paleolithic contexts. It obviously provides no traces of use as a tool, but a closer study of the object is needed. At this place, we would like to return to our initial question. The bacula of the archaeological record serve as sexual symbols or as tools? Their use as an awl is evidenced in several instances during the Upper Paleolithic period. However, the penetrating action by working with awls might also have a wider symbolic, respectively sexual background. These two aspects might have been combined in the context bacula were implemented. The perception of the ursine bacula as a powerful tool seemed to be directly connected to the life of hunter-gatherers or nomadic communities. To date, no farming society has been documented in which bear remains and in particular bear bacula are a considerably interest. One may conclude that the use of bear bacula by humans developed from their use as tools towards symbolically charged objects, which is for the first time strikingly documented in the burial context of the late Paleolithic site of Bonn-Oberkassel. While at Germanka II, the oath penis was mainly used as grave good for adult males, indigenous Siberian hunter-gatherer groups tend to see it as a symbol to enhance female fertility. However, it also reflects the fear of impotency in men. Nonetheless, possibly to conclude that the baculum is generally seen as a symbol for the strength and power of the bear. By wearing or using it, men hope for the transmission of their strength and power to themselves. In summary, it can be said that the new examination of the 14,000 years old find from Bonn-Oberkassel with its young woman, old man, dog, art objects, as well as the bear baculum, had led to vast new information on the human beings who once lived in the area and the human beings who lived during this time period in general. The results were shown 2015, among other things, in the large exhibition Ice Age Hunters in the Landesmuseum in Bonn, and have been published in the exhibition catalog, a scientific volume, as well as in various essays, partly brand new and only released this year. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Liane. Thank you for this amazing lecture and presenting all those fantastic finds. You can see I'm already ready and prepared to attend our academic convocation as well. So my apologies, I have to leave in a minute. But I just want to thank you very much for this presentation, for joining our webinar. And I have to say, I find it always awesome to see how a real interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary research, where so many experts from all kinds of disciplines and scientific sectors are working together. And that's when you have really this very in-depth and very contextual reconstruction of events in the past. And so that was a brilliant example. So thank you very much again. And I'm sure you are in very good hands with Mylene and Rick and Ido. And yeah, so thanks again, everyone, for watching. Please stay tuned. It's just me who is leaving. And see you at our next webinar. Thank you, Liane, and take care. We speak soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alfred.
Thank you very much, Alfred. So, Liane, we're here for you for the question and answer portion. Especially Dr. Riczar Fuentes, who is also a specialist in lithics. So if there are any questions in the chat box, or if anyone would like to actually get on camera and ask the question themselves, you're most welcome to do so. Thank you so much for your fantastic lecture, Liane. It was amazing.
Thanks.
So, Mylene, so far we don't have questions yet. I'm sure the audiences are just masticating the meat that was given to us. It's a lot of good information, yeah. But I have a very maybe simple elementary question. My question is, did they hunt the bears for the penis bones, or did they hunt the bears and then afterwards they thought about, using whatever's left and then looking at and then using the penis bones?
So we have evidence for hunting bears at Gravitian, also from the Swabian Jura in Germany. So there's one lytic point in the vertebra. So we know that they hunting the bears. I don't know from the Oberkassel people, but before in the Gravitian, they are hunting the cave bears. And in the ethnographical records, there's hunting of bears is very popular. So there's a lot of evidence in the Siberian area.
For food?
Excuse?
The bears are being hunted for food?
Yes, for food, but they celebrate a ritual with that. I explained that they had a bear fast. So it's a very ritual ceremony that they have when they kill a bear. It's a fast over many days. So it's not just for eating them as another animal. It's a ritual thing.
So we are being joined by Annie Margvelashvili. Of course, you met her. She's Georgian. And since there are no questions yet, Liane, may I ask now about your work in the museum? Could you walk us through the process of coming up or developing the idea of for example, a very complex exhibition like the Georgian Archaeological Heritage exhibition that you had during the Frankfurt Book Fair in 2018. I can just imagine what went into that, the effort and the resources. But do you mind sharing with us what the process was?
The process was, at first, is the idea to make the exhibition to the book fair it was 3 years before 2015. I had a contact with David Lord Kipanidze from the National Museum in Georgia, and he asked me, maybe we can make an exhibition together. You are now in Frankfurt, so we can do this. And then I had contact to Sven Hansen. He is a director of the German Archaeological Institute in Berlin, and is very specialized in Georgian archaeology. And he was my companion, my co-curator of the exhibition, and now we make it together. He is the context to the Georgian colleagues, and I have the museum museum experience. So and we make it together. We made some trips to Tbilisi to look at the depot, at the magazine. Was what kind of finds you have we can show at this exhibition, and then make some meetings with the restorer from Georgia and also from Frankfurt to bring the object to Frankfurt, because we had also this very great wood wagon with wheels with 1 meter and 80 centimeter in size, and so it was not easy to bring all the stuff to Frankfurt, and it was a lot of willing to do this, also from the German side, but also from the Georgian side. And then you organize it, and you have to write some texts, object texts, also the table texts, and parallel you have to organize the catalog. If you want to make an exhibition catalog, it has to be also at the opening event. It has to be on the table, so you have to start it parallel and ask all the colleagues to write a small essay from the catalog, and then you have to organize the design of the exhibition. So how does it look like? How should it look like when we will present it? And also you have to look for the money. It's also a big point to take care of transport. It's very expensive, but also the design and everything. So you have to go to a foundation to ask for money or something. When everything has to be finished at the date from the opening, that's the point. So the stress curves go also up to this point when the opening is. There are some other questions to exhibitions or something.
Thank you for sharing that with us, Liane. Are there any other questions, Rick?
I'm just curious. There was a reconstruction of the elk, I think, earlier, right? You made a replica. So could you walk us through the process of recreating those kinds of artifacts? Usually you use stone tools, right?
Yes, a colleague from mine, Johann Pinnes, he is also an archaeologist, but also an experimental archaeologist. And he looked very closely to the art object, and then he made this reconstruction also from bone, from elk bone. We know it now that it is elk bone, and then he made it and tried to make it how he think it looks like, because of the legs are now together, but it also this small hind leg, so So we think maybe it's together because of the other art objects from this time period. They also had this link, hint links select.
Were you able to find those small missing pieces? Because I think in one of the sites in Germany, like in Vogelherz, so they were able to find the other parts after several years, right, of excavating.
We tried it. I did not present in this presentation that we also made some excavation at the old site. It was 1914, and then we go there 5 years later to make exhibition diggings there in the area, but we only found an back point piece. So we know it's correct. This is the right site, but we have not found the missing parts from the art object. This was a great goal, but we had not. No.
Yeah, thanks. Should really be lucky to find those.
Yeah, maybe we should try again.
And how about with the experiments? Like you're using stone tools, do you identify the traces also under the microscope? With the ones,
yes.
we compare the ones from the experimental tools and also the archaeological artifacts. Or
So Alfred Pawlik looked at this one piece we found and also presented it in the exhibition and in an essay. But this is the only piece we have. So and no other look at the art object or something is done now. Maybe you will try.
usually for this one, I think for both artifacts, you need to use or to soak the bone in water, right? Can I just process it directly? Like for example, in here we process plants, for example. For this one, I think you need to have like a step-by-step process to make the bone softer before you start shaping that. Yeah, we also have those kinds, but it's just until creation of bone points. I'm not sure if we have those bone ornaments similar to what you have in Europe, but basically the traces on the stone tools could be very similar with what we also observe in Southeast Asia. Yeah, it's just used to our talk. Thanks.
So Liane, you've had the experience of working in both temperate and tropical environments. How different is the quality of the artifacts when you find them in these two different environments?
Yeah, in arid environment it's good condition, and in the tropics it's very bad, especially the bones. That's a really problem. I worked in Cameroon. It's very tropical climate, and we had no bones, nothing. Only the artifact around ceramics and iron artifact, but no bones. It's just a shadow, a shadow on the digging site. So you have no bones. That's really a problem, and sorry about that. No?
Well, yes, we do encounter those problems in Kalinga. So where we would actually find a whole bone, and then it would fall apart by the time it gets to the laboratory. Yeah. It's very different when we were excavating in Manisi and Ani knows that. I mean, you find everything practically intact.
Yeah. Very good condition of the bone, and I think you also have the problems with the DNA. Now it's also gone, or
yeah, usually they're naturally preserved. I think the oldest one is just 7,000 years ago for humans, for the ancient DNA. So now I don't know if you're also using proteomics. Like if you want to, yeah, of course you're using that to identify those missing pieces, like just with the kind of animal bone that was used, for example.
You mean the art object?
Ones, from that tiny
the
ones.
art object? We don't want to do invasive examples. So that's the problem. So we tried with the RMS, what is called the Zoom MS method to the Zoom MS. You know this. It's like a rubber, a little bit piece you have to cut off, not like the genetic examples you need, but it does not work. So what we do was an CT with the art object. We look inside and look how thick is the compactor and the spongiosa, and then compare it to other animal bones and look what is it like. Maybe it's an elk or is it a red deer, and then we see it should be elk and not another animal, but it's not genetically. We have no evidence of genetic or DNA.
Yeah, that's right. Great.
So if we can go back once more to Liane's work in the museum, when you work with such a big volume of artifacts, like what you did for the Georgian exhibit in 2018, there was just so much. How do you decide on how you tell the story? What is the first question you want to answer when you're working with this kind of number?
So our focus was on the Caucasus and its innovations. So it was the first wine they made in Georgia and this region. So we focus on this artifact, how we can present the first wine evidence with the artifact in the exhibition. And the second one was the gold. You have the oldest gold mine in the world, also in Georgia. And then we focused on this site where we can present this old gold mine. And second one, the third one was to show the chronology from Neolithic to the Bronze Age. What's innovations on this time? So the first metal you has also in the Caucasus, and then it spread over the world from this point. And it was the focus on the exhibition. And then you look with which artifacts, with which finds or sites you can show these questions in the exhibition.
That was truly amazing. For context, the cart that Liane mentioned, that's about as big as a pickup truck for us here in the Philippines. It's about that big with bigger wheels, and for them to fly that all the way and back. So Annie has a comment. She said, just as a side comment, we find plenty cave bears in Georgia Neolithic. Not my part of expertise, but just a side comment. Those humans were collecting bear skulls, not art from their bones, to her knowledge, but plenty of skulls. Yeah, we've seen that in the National Museum in Georgia. Probably hunted during hibernation.
Yeah, I know this site. I know it also. We have a lot of sites with cave bear skulls and also bones deposited in a ritual way. It's not just food rests or something, but it's deposited. And also in Georgia, we have it in Georgia, but we also have it in Germany, in Romania, and we have it in France. In France, yeah. So many sites. I had one slide, but it was too short to show to see it. I think it was very short, and I can't go back at my presentation. But this represents very near connection between bears and humans, and we have a lot of them. We have art in the caves, we have the mobile art, and we have these deposits of the skulls, cave bear skulls or other bear skulls. Yeah.
Is there evidence of humans running into hibernating bears? Like, we visited a cave in France where there was cave drawings on the walls of the cave, but at the same time there were also, I don't know what you call them, like these circles where the bears would hide. So and this was like deep in the cave. would they have run-ins and?
We don't know. Maybe, yeah, it's a ritual thing. So they go inside and have this atmosphere, special atmosphere in the cave. I think maybe that's the reason. Also, cave bears are in the cave. So you found maybe also bones there. It's not only the bear himself, but they died there. And then when you go to the cave, you have this maybe many skulls and bones, and then you deposit them in a special way or something. Maybe that's the reason why they go in the cave, because they are there.
April John Nunez has a comment, a question. She's curious about the title of Love, Death, and Artists. Could you tell us about your title?
Yeah, the title is, we have only this question. It was a question: the old man and the young woman, how are they together? Was it father or daughter? But now we know it. I explained it with the genetic. We saw it's not father and daughter, and they are also not siblings. So, but this was a question we want to answer with our research project. On why they are dead. So we can't answer this question, but it was one of the questions. We see a lot of illness and other things especially on the man, but we don't know why he is dead. Also the woman, we see now no illness, no other things on the woman. Why she died with 25 years old? We don't know, but we can't answer this. But it was a question, and the title. And artists, I think you know about art objects. They are in the grave, and there are not so many art objects in the Assyrian time with 14,000 years old. So it's a special thing. We have this between Mesolithic and Upper Paleolithic, and Oberkassel is directly between. And it's very interesting to go to this point. What is, we have this environmental change between Upper Paleolithic with Ice Age, game, and you have Ice Age environment, and then you have the Mesolithic with food and forest and other game. You have elk and not more reindeer or something. So it's a change point, and Oberkassel is directly in between, and that's the very interesting point on this find, because you have not many finds and burials at this time. It's one of the many you have.
Thank you, Liane. It's fascinating, all these overlapping of the different facets to come up with this story that you have presented to us this afternoon. It's very mind-blowing. Rick, do you have any other questions? Ado?
No more questions. Thank you so much for presenting your research. Ado, you have one more question?
No.
So I guess, yes.
Oh,
Go ahead.
so
Shy, go on.
I was gonna close the webinar.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, on that note, let's maybe we can end with Dr. Gimsch inviting our audiences to visit her museum or watch out for future publications. Dr. Gimsch, the floor is still yours.
Okay.
Would you want to invite our audiences to view the museum or watch out for your future publications?
So what I work at the moment, you mean? Yes. I work on a Neolithic. What is it? It's what is the name? It's a necklace made of spondylus muscle, but it's in form of an, I don't know it in English, but we work on it, especially on the process. How was the muscles work is a form of a negligence. This is the point. And I work with Ann-Kathrin Benz. I think you know her. She is a student, a former student from Alfred. She was also on the Philippines, and now she is a specialist specialist on mussels. And they are and they're using how that was used and made. So, and she worked with me on this necklace. It's also in the Archaeological Museum in Frankfurt. And also I prepare a new exhibition about Neanderthals, but it's for 2025. So in 3 years we will present this exhibition, but we start now to look at the literature, to make context about other researchers and other museums to learn the finds and something. So this is the 2 big points I worked at the moment.
Okay, so on that note, thank you very much, Dr. Giemsch, Dr. Fuentes, Mylene, Dr. Pawlik, and we will invite everyone to just follow our Facebook page, our Twitter account, and our YouTube channel for more updates on the succeeding archaeological webinar series. So thank you very much and have a good day and goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Edo. Thank you, Liane. Thanks,
you.
Rick.